up, everybody? Welcome back to the Art is in Depth podcast. I have in the building the one of the human creators of me, the one half, the male half.
Thanks for specifying that one. I'd be a bad replacement of your mom anyway.
My father, Brian Visker Mahanay.
Sitting in the house watching movies doing it, so pretty much nothing's changed other than a little bigger house.
So what, I never knew because I kind of half knew the story about how it started, but was it something about like the Conleys got you a book or something and you got an idea to make one? Or something like that?
I'd done some bookmaking and printmaking and stuff when I was in college. And just that kind of fell apart for when I was doing IT stuff and all that land. And then I was working with the Bayou City Art Festival, and Brian O'Leary, one of my friends, was also involved in that. And him and his partner George were setting up Sherwood Forest Fair. They were just starting that Renaissance Festival out by Austin. And so he's like, "Hey, you want to be a vendor?" And I was like, "Sure." I don't actually have anything.
Yeah.
Never even considered being a vendor. And I was like, "Well, let me see what I can throw together." So I made a bunch of books, and we got a tent and set it up and had a little bookshop. And that was all right. And like second weekend, Julie goes, "It'd be cool if I had a quill to write the books with." And I was like, "Okay, cool. I'll make a quill." So I made the quill, and it was like, "Oh, it's kind of cool. We should make a couple of these to sell." And so I made like 10. And the next weekend, we sold out of 10 quills in like an hour. And then I made like 50 for the next weekend. Yeah. And then it just snowballed. And we went from being a bookshop that sold quills to being a quill shop that sells books.
I didn't even know that. I didn't know that the quills were, I didn't know the quills came next. Because I remember the first year, I don't think I got involved really the first year. And then I started coming out and helping y'all like shortly after that. But I remember because I remember when y'all started doing the quills, and I was doing them like in high school for side cash or whatever.
Side gig. I still do that today. I still always put people on side gig for, help me wrap these quills. Come on, it'll be fun.
Yeah, I mean, even
that's how it works.
Even Chef Steph used to side gig some quills for a minute. We've all dabbled in some quills.
Yeah.
The coolest thing about the quills though is that all the nibs are antiques.
Yeah, they're all vintage, late 1800s, early 1900s. So even though we're making the handle and making the quill, you're still writing with a 100-year-old pen.
Yeah, which is, man, I forgot about that line. That's a fun line to throw out because it's super cool, and it's actually it's really interesting how you can take something and like repurpose it, because in a general sense that it's kind of a dead technology to most people, but it's like more into like a specific art form now instead of like a
it's
means
grown
of
and
communication.
It's grown and grown, and like again, it's the old, much like the shaving razor. It didn't need to be invented, reinvented, and reinvented and reinvented, and but it did. And then okay, now it's more convenient to carry your ink around inside of a pen. But then again, everywhere you went had an ink bottle.
Yeah,
you could carry your own pen, or they would have a pen for you. It actually, the societal aspect of it really didn't differ any much more than it does right now. I mean, and again, people when they come into the shop, they'll like look at the wall of nibs of all the different types of vintage nibs and things like that, and go, well, why are there so many different nibs? And I'm like, well, you can go to Staples and look at the wall, and there's 1,500 different black pens.
Yeah,
and I mean, they all have their own characteristics, and they all write different. They have different kinds of inks. I mean. And so still nothing has changed. It's just the mechanism that's changed.
Yeah.
And, the quill pens and the dip pens are cool because the ink's on the outside. So you don't have to worry about it clogging it up. So you have a lot more versatility as far as if you want to have metal pigments in your inks, or you want to do whatever. They're more closer to a paintbrush. And then, like a internal mechanism pen like you'd have nowadays.
Mm-hmm. So that's super rad. And there's been, but now you guys were talking about recently that you were going to start doing so you were talking about modifying like the bullets and then those little calendars, those little like pocket calendars.
Yeah. So I've started doing, just because after making thousands and thousands and thousands of quills over the last 10 years, I've started getting into like some of the trench artwork and things like that were made by soldiers during World War I. And I got my hands on an old piece of trench art that was actually a quill that was made from a bullet, and it was really easy that they could fold it up and put it in their pocket and protect the nib and the point, and then you could take it out, flip the bullet head around, and then it made it into a quill that you could write with.
Mm-hmm.
So outside of being really functional, these things caught on during World War One, and a lot of soldiers made them, and they turned into bullet pencils and stayed on up and through the 70s. People were still doing advertising, like the first printed on advertisements for like pens and stuff that you see. You see printed pens all the time with business names and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you really don't think about the beginnings of that. But all that really started with trench art pens from soldiers and their popularity because of the great nostalgia of the Great War. When World War One was over, everybody's holding on to these pieces. And people still have nostalgia for wars to this day. It's all collecting things of a time before you that you look back and you go, those guys were heroes.
Yeah.
The same way that, it's like, as absolutely shitty as war is, it still has this pieced glorification in your brain of like, this was so great, and everybody was battling like it was, the Avengers flying around and blowing up shit with their eyes. And, it really was more just, these guys were bored as shit, about to die, sitting in trenches, and they were making art out of what they had around them, which was brass, lots of brass. And so anyway, we started like taking these things and going and recreating some of the trench art pieces to make them functional, like the bullets. And then that kind of led into taking the pencils, the advertising pencils that were made like bullet pens, and repurposing them where they could now have quill pens, and they still serve the same purpose. You can have that sharp point, fold it around and stick it in your pocket and carry it around with you, and it made perfect sense.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's super cool to kind of have now more of like adding more like modern-esque kind of approach to some of the new things, because like it's like you're going from like the antiques, and then you're like kind of just moving up a little bit to the just the more like random, like kind of like the spur of the moment art pieces, like you're talking about, like where these people like or need some way to express themselves whenever they're stuck out in something. But it's really cool, like repurposing.
Yeah, I kind of borrow from the like hot rod industry on that. It's the term is resto mod. It's resto mod. So that's when you take a 78 Corvette and you put like a blower and carbon fiber rear end in it, whatever. You've taken this, you've done these modern transformation to something that was old, and added new technology to it. And that's basically what we're doing with a lot of the antiques. Is like some of them they come to me in like Victorian pens and stuff that were mother of pearl and gold. And the tragedy of that is these, with everybody going, oh well, gold's the most stable thing in the economy, people are buying up anything that has a gold attached to it and just melting them down and destroying antiques.
Yeah.
And destroying these old pens and stuff. And so I've really got to where I've started repairing a bunch of the Victorian pens and redoing nibs on them and matching them up with the right pieces. And, going over to Birmingham, England, and getting the parts that I need to do that and bringing that back and doing that restoration process has actually been a very, very cool part of what we've been doing at Visker Mahanay.
Yeah. Well, and RIP to Nigel from the Nib Museum.
Yeah,
out in Birmingham. He was a really cool guy. We went in, end of 2015, beginning 2016, down the street from the bar we did New Year's at in Birmingham. We went because that was really close to the hostel. It was like walking distance.
Everything was pretty walking distance in Birmingham.
But it's a really cool museum. I even got to make an old nib, like my own nib, and they showed how they press the faces on them, and like they had their assembly line pictures. And
yeah, every machine did one thing. This machine cuts it, then it moves to this machine, then it bends it, and this machine cuts the tip of the nib, and this machine cuts the keyhole. And it's like it was like a 5-machine process to do one little nib. So like when you go, if you were to come into the shop and you see, or you would even see like a box of these nibs, vintage, and there's 144 of them in there. That box of 144 has been touched by a human hand through 5 machines to get it to the point that it's ready to write with. So, I mean, just as far as human labor goes at that time, Industrial Revolution, there's still, fruits of the labor of women and children in substandard working conditions in, late 1800s. That's what you're writing with.
Yeah. That's super cool, super crazy. I'm really glad they can be like repurposed, and that's really cool that the quills just ended up being kind of just like a little fun side project as like a joke, and then it blows up. And which is honestly mostly how a lot of your projects and career kind of like blow up. It's a joke at first.
Yeah, it starts as a joke at the bar usually, and then blows up into something completely ridiculous.
So for those that don't know, my first memories as a kid coming to Houston were doing the art car parades. I think that was like really the first big thing I remember you dabbling in, as far as like me being involved with something that was like reoccurring. How did you get started with the art car parade?
Art cars was really, I came down and I'd moved down here. It was like pre Y2K, that whole technology boom thing was going on in Houston, and I moved down for that, and then I saw these like crazy ass cars driving around Houston, and I was like, what in the fuck is this? I want to do that. That's cool. And so the first year, the first one that you ever rode in, that you rode in the parade with me in, and we broke down. We didn't even make it to the starting line. Was built on a golf car or a go-kart. Yeah, it was a miserable failure. Looked great, but miserable failure. Mechanical failure. And you didn't really think about sitting in line at the lineup to be judged for an hour and a half before you actually got to roll through the parade. Yeah. And the centrifugal clutch on the go-kart caught on fire, and we did everything short of stand up and piss on it to put it out. And so Kim Stolas at the time, who was the head of the art of the art car part of the Orange Show there, she broke a rule and let us be towed through the parade because she knew how hard we'd worked and tried to do it. And then we came back with a fury with Noggin del Fuego 2, which is still probably the best known car that I ever did, which is the giant flaming orange head. So
with no windshield.
No windshield, correct.
Yeah, I've told Steph about the story of like Julie getting smacked with a pebble or whatever.
Yeah, she got hit in the forehead with a rock. Everybody's been hit with a rock. That trip in particular, we drove from Houston to Steamboat Springs, Colorado, in a car with no windshield.
Great idea.
Yeah, right outside of Boulder, Colorado, we hit a wall of water falling from the sky. And by the time we could pull off the road and get to a Walmart, which was on the feeder, we could barely see the sign through the pouring rain. We had about 2 to 3 inches of standing water in the bottom of the car. It took on that much water that fast, probably less than a mile and a half. And so it was just a big catcher's mitt for like deluge of rain.
I was just drinking the water, active head.
Yeah, we just go in and like bought rain gear, suited up, got back in the car, and just kept on going, goggles and rain gear, and just drove it.
As Linda.
And it's what else you gonna do? I mean, that same trip though, it's like you start to get annoyed because you're in this giant orange head and people want to come up and talk to you all the time. Every gas station you're just mobbed with what the fuck's that? And so this one gas station we stopped at, like I thought Julie had paid, Julie thought I paid, and we were just trying to get the hell out of there, and we took off. And well, short story long, we had stolen the gas from the gas station. So we get pulled over by a state trooper about 5 miles from this gas station. And he's like on my ass, like, you know what you did? And I'm like, actually, I don't know what I did, And he's like, you stole the gas. And I'm like, no, I thought she paid for it. Like, and I'm sitting there and, I'm like, do you really think I'm going to try to make run for it in a giant orange head? I'm like...
How would they ever find you?
Yeah, it's just like, I mean, it was pretty clear definition what they were able to say who did it from the gas station. And so, yeah, I had to turn around and go back and pay the thing and get mobbed again by, what the hell's that? Why did you pay for the gas, motherfucker? And then, then we got back in and continued on our merry way to Colorado. But
it's super cool, though. That's actually that dude working in that store is never going to forget that moment where he's like, yeah, this giant orange head just came and stole gas and took off.
Oh yeah, man, it was hilarious. It was that. And there was another. We stopped in another store. We decided we were going to drive back through the panhandle of Oklahoma, just because why not? And turns out the Panhandle of Oklahoma, you can actually see Kansas and Texas from the Panhandle while you're driving down the road.
You can see both
You can
lines.
see both sides. And if you see two intersecting lines in the Panhandle of Oklahoma, that is a four-way stop sign. That's as small as it is. And there's nothing out there. And so we're driving this thing, and they're burning off all the crops, the fields on both sides, Kansas. And so it's just walls of smoke. Again, no windshield. No, it's just
No air filters.
Soot. We're wearing masks, and it's just like soot and like snot sickles of ash. Yeah, it's not a good scene.
It's the funniest thing about it, though. I remember you had to get the car inspected. You had to have a technical windshield on it, which was just that little glass. You put that.
Yeah.
You put that. It was like a 4-inch windshield.
Yeah. So there's a loophole in everything, and so they said, well, it had to have a windshield, but it didn't say what kind of windshield. And I'm like, but if it had a windshield that's like, say, big enough to put a sticker on for a registration sticker, that'd be a big enough windshield, right? Oh yeah, that's right. I put a 4-inch windshild on the car. So it was basically all of that really worked out to be is an air dam to shoot the air into your face faster than it would have smoothly glided over you had I not put that extra 4-inch like skateboard ramp on the front that shot the air into your face more efficiently.
Almost like you needed a windshield.
Right, yeah, almost like I should have had a windshield, but I wasn't having that shit. No, it was aesthetically wrong to have a windshield. I was not going to do that. So, yeah.
Which is why they weren't shielded by the windshield.
Yes, rocks be damned. We're doing it.
So from Noggin, who was after Noggin? Was that the Garden of Life? Was that after Noggin?
Yeah, after Noggin, that was the first car you got to smash the windows out of. You remember that one? I put you in a welding helmet with big welding gloves on and sent you out with a big sledgehammer to bust out all the windows in the car.
Yeah.
That one didn't have a windshield either. Actually...
Well, it had a windshield. It just had no top.
Yeah, it kind of had a windshield.
Yeah.
A little bit better. But the...
Was this one 6 inches?
No, it was bigger. At least it felt bigger. Then again, size queen, yeah.
2 inches can make it feel a lot
just setting
bigger.
you up for that's what she said, joke, yeah. But, no, Garden of Life was in there, and then there were several stand-up scooters.
Dana was one of them.
Yeah, so, chopping in half like little Honda 50s and 150 scooters and putting like a surfboard deck on them and extending the handlebars up so you could stand up and ride them, which was, that one was a really good one. It was probably one of Devlin's more memorable childhood stories was when I was late to come to, it was the World Series in Houston, and we did an art car parade outside the World Series. Downtown, and I'm headed back I'm like, oh shit, I gotta go. I gotta pick up my son from school. So I'm headed back, hauling ass on my stand-up scooter, and this drunk chick just pulls out in front of me downtown, and I dive. I go over the hood of her car. Scooter sticks under her car. I roll down the street. I got a backpack full of empty beer cans that just spill out all over the street. Get up, I'm all bloody, pants are all ripped open.
You had a screwdriver in your pocket.
Yeah, I had a screwdriver in my pocket. Luckily, it didn't poke anything important. It just tore my pants open. And so both knees bloody, elbows, road rash everywhere, face, arms, back, just dripping blood. I get up, walk over to the chick, and I'm like, relatively still in shock. Get up, go over to the chick, and I'm like, so you want to call the cops? She's like, do you want to call the cops? I'm like, she's drunk. She's leaving happy hour. And, I'm just like, no, I don't want to call the cops. And she's like, okay. Pull the scooter out, got a flat front tire, wobble all the way back to the house, jump in the truck, drive to Devlin's school, go in to sign him out of school, big blood print on the sign out paper. Teachers are all coming up to me going, you all right? Just dripping blood. They still, dripping blood on the floor in the school. Sign out Devlin, get back in the truck, drive straight to the local bar. I'm like, here's my laptop, put him at the front table to play Warcraft. And then I went over for shots just because I was done at that point. And then the owner of the bar Brian Lubecker walks over and he's like, man, you can't sit here bleeding on the bar.
Oh man,
good times.
Dark Horse, yeah. We drove by there the other day. I pointed it out the window. I was just like, it's been probably the only other bar besides Riondo's I've spent more hours of my life in. It's probably that one.
Yeah.
Oh man. At this point.
Yeah, that was my after school hangout too. I mean, it got real cool when the skate shop opened up next door.
Yeah, skate shop was next door. You could just go over there and hang, and I could work on whatever the hell I was burning at the bar, or making, or soldering, or whatever the hell they had let me do there.
Yeah, skate shop was cool, man. I'd come over there. They'd put Skate. That's where I found Skate, the video game. They put it on, and to sit there and and sometimes while you're it was just a cool spot to be, especially me starting out skateboarding, because these guys would skate in the shop. Some of the guys would just throw their boards down and just start doing like flight ground tricks right there while you're playing a skateboarding video game, and as a little 8th grader, it's just like, oh man, it feels so cool.
They got they had a little rail in there that they could do stuff on, and
they're hitting the rail and all kinds of stuff. It was super rad. Shout out to Anthony Correa. I don't know if he'll ever hear this, but he had a really good thing going there, man. So it sucks that it fell off, but he's an awesome skateboarder. He's really good. So I guess we could flip over to how did the bar come about?
Proletariat?
Yeah.
That was kind of a funny thing. We Julie and I were wanting to move out of Houston, and we wanted to go. We could have moved anywhere, and so we were looking at going to. Do we want to go to somewhere in the country, which I was very much against. Just because I came from Oklahoma and had no desire in being anywhere back in the country again.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, what about Galveston? And she's like, oh yeah, well, I think Art Space, because she had worked on the Jefferson Davis lofts up in Houston.
Yeah. When
they were building that out, and she's like, I think Art Space has a place down in Galveston. So we're coming across the freeway and randomly meet Becky. She returns our call and shows us an apartment that's completely infested in fleas, Becky was mortified.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh yeah, we like the place. And so they ended up, they didn't have anything available, but ended up building out what's now the quill shop for us, because the whole corner had been open there. And they kind of hung on to the idea that Art Space kind of hung on to the idea that we were going to take over that space and do something with it. And I didn't really have any idea to do it. And then, so at some point, the idea came about to write a grant to Art Space to open an art gallery, because, if you've got National Hotel Artist Lofts, it makes absolutely sense to take this dead space that we've been doing pop-up art shows and things in and put an art gallery there.
Yeah, especially when doing art there anyway.
Yeah, and we were doing it we were piping in electricity from the hallway and hanging up clip lights and doing art shows and bands and stuff in there, and doing that as part of Art Walk in Galveston. And then from there we wrote them this grant, and they came back and they said, hey, this is a great idea, but basically we just asked, hey, give us some money and do this. And we wanted them to pay for it.
Yeah. And
they came back and said, well, we'll build it out for you, but you got to pay rent.
Okay.
To which I said, well, if I got to pay rent, I'm going to put a bar in it. And I said, all right. So then we just moved forward, and we ended up with, they built the whole thing out and opened the bar, and started off with very humble beginnings of our beer selection was on a board above the door, and it looked like a frat boy's beer collection at his house. It's oh, look at this can from Austin. And but yeah, that kind of evolved on from there, and we've grown, and now we pizza and coffee, and we're still doing as much art as we can. COVID's kind of got us shut down for the moment for doing anything really good or any of the cool shows that we were able to do in the past. But we're hoping, eventually things are going to calm down enough that we can get back to start doing some fun events and craft nights and all the things that made us great in the beginning.
Mm-hmm. And for those that have been listening, of course, the Proletariat is it was the site of all of those poet episodes that we had.
Oh yeah.
We had pretty much Pretty much every single feature that came out of the Coast of Soul for ever since we dropped the podcast was here. Like we had everybody, and that was one of the main reasons why we did the 46 episodes in the first year, because I had every Tuesday or every first Tuesday
rolling poet every Tuesday.
Yeah, and then. But we definitely miss stuff like that. I know they're still doing their poetry night at Avant for Right About Now Poetry. Shout out to all those guys. They're doing it all like remote. Like everybody kind of taps in.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I haven't. I mean, since COVID, we had to let every event go, and so it's sad because we've lost all of that. We had an amazing culture going on, and outside of the loss of human life from this and everything else and the economic destruction that it's waylaid upon Galveston and tourism and, I mean, the rest of the country and the world for that matter.
Yeah.
It's also the loss of this, cultural amalgamation that's like everybody coming together and doing these different events that we were doing and, between art and poetry and all of that. So, again, I miss it and, it seems so far away, and it's only been, a year. And so, but we'll get back there. Yeah,
I mean, because we were we were talking about that the other day with I was talking about that with Pete Hesher, who's also been on the show. We were talking about how, man, there were just shows like there was like 2 shows a week. Somewhere at least out of the people, out of the bands like we know, but as far as like cover bands and stuff playing, there was something going on every night. There's like you could go anywhere and find something. It was a lot more lively, but like the art, especially I also didn't realize how the art scene was kind of like the life center of a lot in Galveston, and then when that gets shut down, like you see how everything just kind of like dies. Like you see, it's like a lifeblood. Like
everybody's drinking a lot more, smoking a lot more, and eating a lot more. We're all gonna be a bunch of half alcoholic fat asses when COVID's over and we get to start back up again. It's gonna look like an oldies band. But
remember Meatloaf came back?
Yeah, we'll see. It's like, oh man, it's comeback tour for Galveston.
Yeah, I think the comeback tour would be good.
I think it will.
I think everybody's looking forward to it. Hopefully, I mean, is there any word on Art Walk?
They're as long as they're still saying not to do big gatherings, because Art Walk's one of the bigger downtown gatherings as far as people being outside, and we're hoping that maybe this vaccination stuff will pan out and maybe we can actually have a summer this year. I mean, Galveston without 2 summers and Mardi Gras and Motorcycle Rally. I mean, most of the big things that actually made Galveston sustainable for a lot of businesses have been wiped out in all of this. So,
yeah, a lot of businesses have been dropping off.
Yeah,
too.
People have been dropping, and it'll come back. It's just going to see who survives the comeback.
Yeah, you gotta survive the cleansing. It sucks, especially because we're any tourist town. I think everybody got checked this year. Just because you didn't realize how, and also something I keep saying, I didn't really realize how intimate concerts were until the pandemic.
Right.
Because I was thinking about it, especially like metal shows, because I grew up being around the mosh pits until I balled up and up to go and get in them. But like I realized, I'm like, man, I'm around shouting people that are sweaty, so they're shouting, their spit particles are getting on me, I'm getting sweat on me, and everybody's just touching each other. In these like metal concerts, I'm like, man, these shows are really intimate.
Yeah, I know. You got all this. Everybody's wearing face masks. I mean, all of a sudden now everybody gets a little dose of what it would be like to live in a country where women have to wear burqas. Because now all you got's eyes, man. You can see eyes. I'm like, never paid so much attention to women's eyes as I have in the last year. When you have all the rest of the inflection of the human face covered up, eyes all of a sudden start making a big difference.
Right, and then you start seeing ankles, and you're like,
"Oh yeah, I know, man. Let's turn it all back. Here we go, man. Let's make ankles sexy again. That's what we're doing. That's
that's what Trump's going to make us come back with. He's going to try to appeal to.
That's going to be a great acronym on a hat.
So we have the first show since COVID. I think it's the first. Well, I mean, I guess with like the pieces of paper on the wall and stuff have been like pretty cool for the community.
Yeah, the brown paper works have been cool, and it's just a way to involve people. That anyone could be involved in it because we just wanted to have changing art.
Yeah.
And now the quarantine show is evolving, and that's coming together. So that'll be an interesting one. And we'll see, even though we're not going to have a giant opening like we usually do and big party of it, it'll still, people could come in smaller things, and we still have, still got art on the walls, still go moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to it. I contributed a piece, and I'm stoked to see everybody's stuff, just see what people made up, and especially because, she was asking to add in, a couple little words about your piece. And it's just kind of, I'm looking forward to see what everybody just has, like, their quick little things they're going to say, or, like, where they came up with some of these things. Someone's going to write something snarky.
Everybody needs to learn that trick anyway. It's an art school thing. Like, if every art student has always had that. I'm turning in something really late. It's really not good, but I'm going to write up something really great about it.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, it's a big red dot, but this is what it means. And, you break it all down into some hyper-spiritual, what this red dot means. All of a sudden, people are standing there with a cup of coffee going, damn, man, that's a really deep red dot.
Yeah.
And...
that's kind of how I felt with going to the going to the MFA in Houston with some of the things that are framed where it's like, why is this on?
Why is this here? Wall? Yeah, because
why is this $20 million?
It's important because the personality that made it was important.
Exactly.
It's even sometimes more about the art of the human that's making the art than it is the art itself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just a whole other style. Some work can just stand on its own. Some needs a great explanation.
Yeah.
Some needs just a really funny cartoon character dressed as a human to promote it. And so.
Man, yeah, I'm actually really glad finishing through art school. I learned a lot more than I knew about it, and kind of see how even my art professor. I want to have Mr. Stovall on the show. Professor Stovall is a really cool guy, like super passionate dude. But some of the stuff he was talking about, he was just like, no, like he would be honest to us in art class. He'd straight up be like, you know what, guys, what you need to do, you need to keep making connections. Never stop talking to people, because you know what? If you can coerce some dude to buy one of your pieces for like $1 million, you are $1 million artist forever.
never look back. Yeah, it's
like he was like just it's all about connections and who you know, and if someone needs an insurance investment.
Do some art in another country, then you're an international artist. Yeah, no, it's like you can bill yourself legitimately as an international artist.
Yeah, well, and that's what he was about. He was about everybody, being your individual and just doing your thing, and just making whatever, but like. Because, like a lot of people, because he taught like art appreciation and stuff. So a lot of people took his classes as kind of just like blow off electives. But actually sitting there and listening to what he had to say, like, was really cool. Because, like, it shows just how, like, kind of teaching, just like a different perspective on art, which is not like as critical and kind of just like go with it. It's like instead of thinking you messed up with that line, just do something else with it.
No.
It kind of reminded a lot with, like we used to do when I was a kid, like the scribble exercises.
Yeah, that's a personal barrier. You got to do you don't really mess up. You just keep going.
Yeah.
I mean, not to say I haven't had some drinking and drawing episodes where I really thought when I was doing it, wow, this is great. Then I look at the next guy and go, who in the fuck drew this? Like, yeah, it's just entirely a different change, so.
Especially those dark lighting bar doodles where, it looks real good and saturated.
It's saturated red light, and then you turn it on. I mean, I guess it works like beer goggles and, picking up someone at the bar, too. It's like, gosh, you really look good in that red light. Ugh.
It was Daniel Tosh talking about the pterodactyl from the bar. Where you gotta save your friends, turn the lights on. They're like, oh, that's really good, man. So what are y'all, a thing I was trying to focus on for some of these post-COVID episodes here was just how do you see, but just like a little note for everyone. There's a lot of gourmet mushrooms for restaurants. Like you don't see a lot of things because you can't really import them.
They don't transport. They're too soft. Like portobellos and hardy mushrooms can be transported, but like really delicate ones can't, and so you have to have them very closely grown and pretty much hand delivered. And we kind of figured out a niche. Well, so that's our next new adventure for post-COVID is continuing to grow that business also.
Which in itself is another art form, and it's actually been really cool as a kid getting to see all the different things. It's cool seeing you grasp these new projects and like kind of conquering them, because it's kind of cool seeing, you know, the quill shop kind of, I mean, you know, like conquered state, I'm saying in the sense of like, you know, there's like 2 fairs with buildings, you know, it's not just like tents and scrambling for the entry
legwork. It gets a little easier as it goes, which is good because I keep getting older and can do less and less legwork. So the, you know.
Well, now the online store is established too. And,
yeah,
you know, like
that's been doing great. Online, we've been selling great this year, so kept us going, and you know, big props to everybody that believes in the things we make.
And then for the Bard, so probably for the Bard be a while before we're doing like gathered stage events again.
Yeah, well, you know, we're hoping to bring back the outdoor stuff again, the strings on the street and that kind of stuff.
That was doing pretty well.
It's just it was getting too hard with the weather and you know all of that. So probably in the spring that'll come back, and that'll be the beginning foray into what we're going to do next, and then hopefully again art walks will start kicking off again. Yeah, and you know, hopefully we can have a summer. Cruise ships can come back. I made fun of tourists this whole time, and I was like, oh God, it's tourist time again. And now I'm like, man, I miss those guys. I really wish the tourists would come back.
It's like, man, it's like what I would do for tourists.
Yeah, I miss you and your wallets. Please come back. Please come back.
But bring your wallet.
But bring your wallets.
Well, you know, I was going to say what's really cool about like the strings on the street is that's actually something that never existed but came into play because of COVID.
Yeah.
And now it's going to continue to be a culture because of COVID, but long after COVID's gone, taken care of. It'll still be there because it was something to bring people together while allowing them to be outside. When it was at like the peak of the lockdown. That's
a great space too, you know, like just having that big blank wall just to project things on.
Well, yeah, much like the Borg, the artist lofts kind of assimilate everything around it. Like the alley becomes the alley. You know, the projection screen across the street. You know, it's like we've just kind of taken over everything.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, art's a very like proactive and like can be like a dominating thing. Like especially, you know, with, you know, messes being made and whatever. But so another thing, Stovall talk about how all like the greatest art was like stolen or someone like took advantage of some situation to make some type of art happen.
Of course.
And that's what I think is really cool. You know, kind of like even like with tagging, it's like, you know, like illegal to like, you know, not like writing your name on and the date, like the stupid tags in the bathroom, but you know, like people that literally risk jail time to put some like immaculate piece illegally on somebody's wall
or in some insane place.
Like, yeah,
you just go through Houston and I'm like, what kind of tackle did they have to bring to get to that spot? You know?
like the beautiful murals like up on like the overpasses. It's like, how did you get up there?
You brought gear, man. Yeah, you came equipped for that.
It's like a free climber in the off time.
It's like,
the ones that are on like, you know, or the ones that I think are the craziest are the ones that dangle over the highway, like when they go onto the green signs, like the highway signs, they'll go up there and tag those, but they'll just dangle over the highway just to get that tag.
Yeah.
But you know, the things people do for art's insane, and the artist lofts definitely. I mean, it's a good community, and honestly, they're really good at making do with whatever, you know. It's got its ups and downs with it, but you know, so does everything.
Yeah, you know, good collection of weirdos.
Yes, absolutely. Like most, you know, that place is like a big bag of jelly beans. There's a bunch of random flavors, and you may grab one that looks like it's really cool, and you bite into it, and it's like buttered popcorn or something.
Right, or booger.
Like Harry Potter jelly beans. You know.
You got all the sour jelly beans and they're great, and then somebody put like those 4 booger ones in there, man. It's just like super contrast.
It's a bag of Harry Potter jelly beans. Well, it's been cool. It's been cool having you on the show
thanks
finally.
for having us out. We finally got here. It's been, 2 years we've been talking about this at least.
Yeah. Well, the 2nd-year anniversary of the podcast was yesterday.
Oh, all right.
And
so 2 years.
And this is episode 50.
Man, well, that's great. I'm glad you're back at it and got them up and going again.
Yeah, and we have so for season 2, I think Steph and I might do 51, and then we're gonna move and change the studio, and I'm gonna redo the art and everything, and we'll release season 2 for the next 50 episodes.
Sounds fun.
So, man, really thanks for wrapping up season 1 for us. This is cool. This has been fun.
All right.
Thanks for eating dinner with us and everything, coming over.
Yes, it was fantastic.
Great. Thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
thanks. Congrats.
All right. Well, everybody, make sure to like and subscribe and follow and all that stuff, and be on the lookout for season 2.